Monday is my favorite day to plan a candlelit upscale dinner at home. And by the way, candlelit does not at all need to automatically mean romantic. It's something you can do with your family. I think Monday is the best day for me because Mondays do tend to be the more stressful day for both Eric and myself. It's a way for us to unwind, and I can do a lot of the prep work the day before on Sunday, late afternoon, early evening. So let's make a red onion tart, poulet Dijonnaise, and a green salad and crêpes flambées. I'll also be giving you a few French food tips and etiquette for how to dine in a fancy French restaurant, some things that very few people know. We had just stopped by this cute little Irish themed pub that we passed on the way from our Disney trip this weekend back to home. It was along the way. So cute. So I'm going to get started now with 5 small to medium-sized red onions. You can't go wrong with choosing too many onions because too many onions just means you'll have leftovers to top with on a roast beef sandwich or something like that. So you want to cut both ends of the onions off, cut them in half, and then just make sure and get any of that, that paper shell off of them. This isn't a race. I really hate how so many cooking shows have less experienced home cooks thinking that they have to have fast knife skills. It's much better to go slowly. Some of the best cooks who I know do not have the ability to slice paper thin with great speed. And conversely, some of the people I know who can do that was, culinary school 101, they can't actually cook all that well. So don't conflate the two. Take your time and slice all those onions into half moons, paper thin slices. In a hot pan, we're going to take about 1.5 tablespoons of like a olive oil. You can use like a light olive oil. And we're going to, on medium heat, sweat those onions so that they will start to release some of their liquid. After about 90 seconds, we're going to go in with about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of sugar. And this isn't necessarily going to make our onions more sweet. It's going to help caramelize the onions. At this point, once I've mixed the sugar in well, I turn the heat down to low. And I'm going to let this cook for 30 minutes. One of the most common mistakes made by home cooks is trying to rush this step. You can't. If you want to caramelize onions, there are no shortcuts. So I put my microwave timer on for 30 minutes. What I didn't show here in the video is that at the end of that 30 minutes, I gave it a light dusting of salt, and I gave it a quarter of a cup of red wine balsamic vinegar. And I let it cook on low heat until it was really nice and dry. We don't want it to have liquid because it's going to go into a tart pastry. Now let's get started on our crepes. We're going in with 1.5 cups to 1.75 cups actually of milk, 2 eggs, a teaspoon of oil, a tablespoon of sugar, and did I say 1/2 teaspoon of salt? And 1 cup of flour. This goes in the blender for 90 seconds. I like to pour things in the order that you saw them, with the flour going last, because that decreases the chances that the flour is going to get stuck to the bottom and need to be scraped out. At the somewhere like halfway along the 90-second mark, though, you may want to stop your blender and just make sure that none of the flour is stuck to the sides and bottom. We want it to be well mixed. All right, that just needs to sit for anywhere from 30 minutes to 45 minutes. So remember, you still have your ovens on the stove on low heat, and this can also sit somewhat unattended, these two things. Just be in the vicinity of the kitchen. At the end of 40 minutes, I came back to my kitchen, hot pan, medium pan, a teaspoon of butter, and I'm going to pour in some of my crepe batter. Now, I don't advise you to freehand pour like I did. I've done this enough, it's fine, but if you're less familiar, I encourage you to use a ladle or some container where you're using the exact same quantity every time. The average kitchen ladle is just going to be just the right amount of batter with this recipe. You don't need a crepe pan specifically. That's something I remember in the early aughts that Bed Bath & Beyond used to push on young couples for their wedding registries. You don't need it. The problem with crepe pans is that you can do everything. You can make crepes in a regular pan like this, but you can't use a crepe pan it's not as versatile as other pans. So it ends up usually getting wasted. You don't want pans that are not versatile, unless it's, a specialty item you're going to use a lot. That's my opinion. So don't waste your money buying a crepe pan. You can absolutely use a saute pan as you see here. Now, I don't know, my first crepe always looks so ugly. It's like pancakes. This one looked too ugly, and it was a little too thick. I ended up having to thin down the batter a tiny bit with just like a few sprinkles of water. You'll know that your crepe is ready to be flipped to cook the other side when you start to see along the entire perimeter of the crepe that it's dry. It will start to turn golden brown, and it will start to pull away from the sides of the pan. You can see that my spatula was making its way through until it came to that spot there, and it was just too soft. So I realized, no, I have to wait a little more time. You will get about 9 large crepes out of this batter. And since I'm making dinner for 3 people Monday night, myself, Eric, and one of our friends, this is perfect. Each person will end up getting 3 crepes. All right, now what you're seeing here is that side here with the spots. This is the inside. This is the side we don't want people to see. If we're using filling, we use the side that has the spots to use filling, because the side you're seeing here is considered the attractive side of the crepe. It's the side that first went down in the pan. So that should be on the outside. We can just stack these on top of each other, because since they are so thin, by the time one gets stacked on the other under it is cool. So both my onion filling and my crepes went wrapped up into the fridge overnight. Now you're seeing me coming home Monday, late afternoon, early evening, and I'm gonna get started on a nice dinner. I need 6 boneless, skinless chicken thighs, salt, pepper, an egg. We're only using the yolk here for our Dijonnaise sauce. Some better than bouillon chicken base, half and half. Dijon mustard. Make sure you get the one from Walmart that says made with white wine. Now this is quite comparable to the Grey Poupon brand. If you'd like to, you are free to buy Grey Poupon. I'm a little cheapy. Optionally, you can be ready to go in with about a teaspoon of honey. That's not really traditional, but I like it. And Dijonnaise sauce should have a tiny bit of white wine. Now, I think that Spanish wines are highly underrated. Most people know a lot of French wines. This bottle of 50 Provinces Sauvignon Blanc, I got it on sale at my local wine shop for $3. I don't know if anyone would ever be interested in it, but I've definitely toured the wine regions of France and Spain, and I find that Spanish wines are highly underrated in the US, and they're really not known very well. A comparable bottle of wine like this, which is bottled and made in France, would probably cost $15 to $17. So it's a really good cost savings. I like to always make sure that I have lots of extra bottles of cava and Spanish wines for weekday nights, We also have some spring mix for our salad that has frisée, which is a perfect lettuce combination to Dijonnaise. What you see covered, that's our onion tart filling. I also have goat cheese, and I have scallions, green onions. I have puff pastry. Puff pastry comes in a trifold always, and usually we'll get 2 of these trifolds in American supermarkets. If you can, go with what I went with, which is the Trader Joe's brand, because it's made with real butter. Unlike Pepperidge Farm, which is made with, I think it's palm oil. However, the Pepperidge Farm is still yummy. It's still good. It's just the Trader Joe's, besides being $1 cheaper, it's like amps it up a notch because it is made with real butter. I still probably would not make my own puff pastry. I've done it myself before. It's just really tedious for what I get, considering I get a great product from Trader Joe's. So even the best restaurants don't make it in-house, unless they're bakeries, okay? Now, this is my crêpes, which I rolled up once they were cooled. And the ingredients for my crêpe flambée, I want 1 orange. I'm going to zest that orange using the grater part, the thin, fine part of the grater. And I just want to get the orange part. Be careful as you zest. You don't want to get the white part, which is called the pith. That is bitter. So don't be too zealous. You could just juice that orange. I don't want to do that. I want to eat that orange tomorrow, the next day. So I have some, like the little tiny container of orange juice. We're going to need sugar. We're going to need about 2 tablespoons of sugar per serving. We'll also want some Grand Marnier and some type of cognac. And this is not traditional, but I like to top my when I serve them with just a light dusting of cinnamon and also powdered sugar. Those 2 alcohol bottles that you see there is just enough for 3 servings. And I also have, for safety, I have this kitchen lighter. I hate using matches, actually. I'm going to preheat my oven to 400 degrees. And once my puff pastry has had a chance to soften up a little bit at room temperature, that probably takes about 15 or 20 minutes of sitting outside, I'm going to use 4 of the trifold pieces. And as you see, I have folded over some corners here about 1 inch inside. And that kind of makes a barrier. That side is going to puff up like a wall. Inside of that is where I'm going to put my onion filling. As you can see, I did a really good job of, once I added that balsamic vinegar, wine vinegar, I did a good job of really drying it out. So now it's not like my onion filling is going to be a drippy mess in the pastry. I put about 1 teaspoon of oil and 1 teaspoon of butter in my saute pan now, along with my chicken breasts. For 3 people, I recommend that you use 6. I only used 5. Not chicken breasts, I'm sorry, chicken thighs. I would recommend for 3 people you use 6, 2 per person. I only wanted 1 because I had a large lunch, so I left 2 boneless, skinless chicken thighs for Eric and our guest each. 5 minutes on each side is a good rule of thumb if you're cooking on medium heat and an appropriately strong burner. While that's cooking, I'm gonna get my tart ready to be topped. My tart needed exactly 28 minutes in the oven, so I want to be ready to top it with some chopped up scallions, and I'm going to use those 2 spoons to gently shape little kind of balls-ish of that soft cream cheese on each piece of tart. After 10 minutes, my chicken was done cooking, and you see a lovely fond has developed on the bottom of this pan. That's like great chicken juices and everything. We're going to go in with 1 teaspoon of the Better Than Bouillon chicken base. We need to move fast and make sure all of our ingredients are ready to go. Mise en place, as they say in the French kitchen. Everything in its place. Be ready to go so you're not running around looking for things. I went in with 3 tablespoons of butter. I think I may have forgotten to say that. I'm sorry earlier. You do need butter. This is a French dinner after all. I just didn't take it out before because, it needed to be cold. So 3 tablespoons of butter. I went in with about, 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup of white wine. All of these steps, in each step, I was deglazing my pan. So I was using my spatula to kind of scrape up the pan and to clean it. Now this is important. At this point, we want to really keep an eye on our sauce. I went in just now with about a quarter of a cup of half and half, because this is the last chance that we will have to attempt to reduce our sauce. Once our egg yolk goes in, once the mustard sauce goes in, you definitely will not have the ability to reduce the sauce, because you can't really cook it, because we don't want scrambled eggs, right? It won't be able to reach that temperature quite again. But I think we're doing okay, because as you see, as I drag my spatula through the sauce, I can see the bottom of the pan. It leaves track marks there. So I feel that my sauce is sufficiently thick enough to move on to the next step. All right, I've turned my heat quite down, and it's now time to add our egg yolk. The purpose of adding a yolk is to help thicken the sauce, rather than to add a whole egg, which whites help to set things. I don't want it set. I still want it to drip like a sauce. So I put in just the yolk into a little bowl, and this part is called tempering. So I'm going to take some of my hot pan juices here, my pan liquid, and I'm going to add it to the room temperature egg yolk. And this is helping the egg to gradually increase in temperature. I'm going to do 2 teaspoons mix, 2 teaspoons mix, 2 teaspoons mix. And then I will add that mixture into the egg. That will prevent me from having one spot of solid cooked egg, and rather having a rich sauce that is complemented by the egg yolk. And you won't taste egginess at all in there, don't worry. I'm going in with about 2 tablespoons of my Dijon mustard. And again, this does need to be on low heat. Those ingredients that you're seeing now, I'm putting in about a tablespoon of honey. None of these ingredients want to truly cook, other than to gently sit in a bath of warmth. Now, in our very warm, but obviously not even simmering sauce, as you see, our boneless, skinless chicken thighs go back in with tongs. And then, as you see on the plate, as the chicken rested, some of the juices came out. That chicken was cooked, so those juices can and should go back into the sauce for flavor. Our tart is out of the oven, and cleanup is so easy because I used parchment paper on the cookie sheet. So all I have to do is very carefully fold up and toss out the parchment paper. Look at that rich color of those onions and that rich buttery puff pastry. We're going to use those 2 spoons to shape on the goat cheese onto each individual piece of the tart. You don't want to smear the goat cheese on the tart for 2 reasons. One, you want that rich, deep, almost eggplanty color of that balsamic red wine vinegar tomato to shine through and to contrast against the brilliant white of your goat cheese. Also, these are very different tastes. So if you had smeared it, all of your tastes will be uniform. You want your guest and yourself to bite into first some acidic red wine vinegar onion. Then they're going to get a couple of bites of that tangy, fresh goat cheese, finishing with the end with a rich, buttery puff pastry. It's a really nice experience, nice appetizer for your meal. We sat with those and a glass of wine for nearly an hour before we finally sat down to dinner with our chicken and salad. The salad, all that I did was ever so lightly dress it with a little olive oil, salt, and pepper. It didn't need much. I took the time to move over these ingredients that you're seeing here, which is the ingredients that I used for my crepes, and getting everything prepped, including zesting that orange. I did all of that and moved it over to the station where I would cook later, so that everything would be ready to go smoothly. At this point, I went to take a shower, get changed, and be ready for dinner. I didn't have to do any other cooking until it was time for us to enjoy our crepes. So we actually enjoyed this for like an hour and a half. It was lovely. Candles. You know, you can get candles at Walmart or the dollar store. Never use scented candles at dinner. We don't want the scents of candles to compete with food, okay? Always really white candles is best, and definitely unscented. Now, for our dessert. I like to do this with an audience. Please forgive any awkwardness, and there is some in this video because I was holding a phone. I really need to get my tripod stand out of the closet and just use that, because it would be so much less awkward. I could show you so much better stuff. Now, about 2 tablespoons of sugar, maybe a little more. Okay, this is something you can eyeball. But that goes into a pan at somewhere between like low and medium heat. This takes time. You can't rush it. You can't rush caramelization of sugar. It will burn. And I'm going to take this moment just to show you, because I notice that a lot of cooks on YouTube, they'll skip past steps, and so you really can't get a feeling as a home cook of how long things really take. So I'm going to show this to you, and I'm going to tell you 2 things about French cooking that you may not know. Crêpes Suzette is not the same thing as crêpe flambée. A lot of people, crêpe Suzette is the one that uses Grand Marnier and orange, and can use some kinds of alcohol. Curacao is commonly used. Crêpe Suzette uses butter that is flavored by orange rind. It's not necessarily flamed. As a matter of fact, the Escoffier guidebook doesn't mention anything about flaming crêpe Suzette. Crêpe flambée is any crepe that gets flamed. It gets alighted by fire with the alcohol that is in it, and you have a lot more flexibility. There's a lot of other fillings that you can use. It doesn't just have to be orange. I noticed that in the United States, a lot of people kind of use those terms interchangeably, Suzette and flambée. Now you know. Another thing, and this is an etiquette tip that I notice a lot of American people don't seem to know. People love desserts that get flambé. They love that the fire presentation right in front of them oohs and ahs from the whole restaurant. In a traditional French restaurant, only the maitre d' or maybe the head waiter will perform that task. If it's a busy night for them or a busy day, whatever, they may be stretched too thin. And if it's on the menu, really they have to serve it. So be thoughtful. Consider if that's something that you want to order on a very busy night. I don't usually order anything to be flamed at home, because I do it often enough myself at home. Another thing to keep in mind if you are trying to dine on a budget is that the maitre d' or the head waiter, whoever performs that task, is not your waiter, so they will deserve a little extra tip for their efforts on your behalf. Little $10 or $15 slipped to them for each person who ordered a flamed dessert at the table, because each dessert is obviously going to take time. So don't show your ignorance about fine dining by accidentally ordering something flamed on a Saturday night, on the busiest night of the week in a restaurant. Save that for like a Tuesday evening out or something like that. It's just my advice. So now you can see my sugar has really well melted. And again, I did have this on somewhere between low to medium heat. Definitely don't keep it up all the way up to medium. It will burn. I'm going to immediately have all my ingredients ready. I'm adding about a tablespoon of butter. I'm going to let that melt really quickly. Then I'll add about a 1/4 of a cup of orange juice, along with about 1/3 of the orange's rind. Or I'm sorry, not rind, zest. about a third of the zest that I zested from that navel orange earlier. I can't remember if I said it, but navel is the orange you want to use for zest. Now, this was not easy to show, but what I did is once I had that liquid, I dipped each side of the crepe into the liquid, then I folded them in half and then in half again. I did that with a tongue and a fork. You can see plenty of videos online of how to do that. Now I pour in, and sorry about the awkwardness of this, like I said, I was using a phone, not the best idea. But we're going to go in with about a third of the bottle, that little bottle of the Grand Marnier, about a third of the bottle of the cognac, and then we light it. You do need to move quickly because once the juice and the butter and everything gets added, it sometimes reduces the concentration of the alcohol. It won't always alight. But this is a lovely thing to do. Mind your hood on the top of your stove. But this is a lovely thing to do, especially as you see my kitchen was dark. It was late at night. My guest and Eric, they are both there to enjoy this. You can only make one serving of crêpes Suzette really at a time, or sorry, crêpe flambée. See, now I'm doing it. You can really only do about one at a time because you probably want to give each person about 3 crêpes. So I recommend that you carefully, using your spatula and the fork, you're going to transfer this onto the plate, and you're going to make sure that the most uniform and attractive looking crêpe is set on the top. So you're going to set them like arrows, overlapping each other, and then the most attractive one on the top. You can then use, if you have any little bit of zest remaining, some people, I have noticed in a lot of restaurants, they will use a vegetable peeler to remove some of the orange peel, and they will use that as a garnish. I like to use a very light dusting of cinnamon, as I told you, and confectioner sugar, the white powdered sugar. And a common other thing that a lot of restaurants will do is serve this with a scoop of vanilla ice cream. That's a really nice thing to do. You have a hot, syrupy dessert with the icy cold, fresh ice cream. And you know what actually inspired me to make specifically flamed crepes? Is that, I mean, it's something I make flame desserts all the time, as I said, including these. But there's a video that's going viral in women-centered spaces this past week. And a book from the 1940s was recently discovered. It was a book about men, a specific man who was the author of this book, complaining about everything he didn't like about women. One of the things he didn't like about women was that women always want to eat, like, they love fancy food, like they love crêpes Suzette, and I'm guessing he meant crêpe flambée. And it is true. Ladies love to order at restaurants anything that is set on fire. They love the showmanship of it. They love, and let's face it, it tastes delicious. And I was looking on this video of people saying, you know, this guy clearly doesn't like women. I was really focused on that one point, that he brought up some of the things that ladies like to eat. And I felt bad for the man because it made me say to myself, wow, even then in the 1940s, I wonder if there were a lot of men who said to themselves, I don't deserve that, and I'm annoyed with you for thinking that you deserve to eat that lovely, delicious food. If a man cannot afford that, that is one thing, and it's a completely reasonable concern. But it's a different thing to think that the woman is wrong for liking it. And, you know, a real problem with this is how many men have never gotten familiarity in the kitchen. I am the first to say that a lot of women also do not have familiarity in the kitchen. Hello, have you ever seen that Josh's Mom channel? Wow. A lot of very nice ladies have never learned even the most basic cooking skills. I do understand. I get it. But I think there's a difference between not having the basic cooking skills and being upset with other people for wanting to have nice foods. I think there is some projection there, because I think a lot of men don't really realize that they deserve to eat well too. And I do think that a big part of the failures of the manosphere, what the manosphere has exposed, is that there are so many men who are angry to see good food being eaten by women online. That's another thing that has kind of become a viral thing lately. Men watching women eat at restaurants in videos and saying, that's so annoying. She didn't cook that herself. It feels less annoying to you if you know that you can either afford to eat well yourself at restaurants, or you can afford to eat well at home because you have the solid skills needed. None of the ingredients that you saw here were particularly expensive, I will say. Probably the more expensive end was like that little bottle of Grand Marnier and little bottle of cognac that I bought. And you can just use any like brandy too, by the way. You don't have to use cognac. I think I did just use brandy. I don't think I even used cognac this time, because I don't really want to spend that much. But think about the elements of this meal. Chicken thighs. That is a super cheap thing. I got that salad mix on sale. Everything came from Walmart, by the way. Crêpes. What's that? Milk? Flour? There's like nothing to that, Butter. I use Walmart butter. Don't wait around for anybody to make you these things. Don't even wait around to make them with or for somebody else. If you have a friend, make it with a friend. If it's just you, make it yourself. You deserve to eat good foods. And I think that a lot of women have already internalized that point. They say, I want to eat good foods. And so if you are a man, like I said, if it's just an issue of that restaurant is out of your price range, totally understandable. But don't think that other people are wrong for wanting to eat these kinds of foods. You also deserve to eat the best. And I'd love to hear that you tried this full dinner that we made. All of these things are perfect for summer. It's a very typical summer French dinner. And thank you for watching. I hope you have a lovely day. Bye.